Okay, today's video I'm going to be talking about my friction polish. It's probably the most asked question I get is what am I using? So that's what I'm going to talk about today. You might hear some background noise. There's construction going on next door, so hopefully it won't interfere too much. So when I started wood turning, I discovered friction polish, and I was really fascinated by it because it's a quick and easy way to finish your projects. So I started looking into it, and the recipe you find online, it's always mixing equal parts of shellac, denatured alcohol, and then most of the time it's boiled linseed oil, which is what I use. So I used that for a long time, and it works pretty good. You get a pretty good shine on the project. The problem I was having is the shine wouldn't last very long. I'd put it on there and it'd be nice and shiny, and a few days later the shine just kind of dulled. So I wasn't very happy with that. So I started playing around with different mixes, and the mix that you see me using today on all of my projects is the mix that I came up with, and it's different from the equal parts mixture. It's first of all, I don't use any. I use the canned shellac. I have the clear, and then I also have the amber. This is the clear mix. This is the amber mix. So this colors the wood a little bit, but not too much. This one will make the wood darker. So those are the two that I use. So I use the canned shellac, and I don't cut it at all. I use it just out of the can. So I don't use any denatured alcohol in my mix. And also the whole equal parts thing, I don't do that either. So what I do is I fill up my container. Now this container is a mineral oil, or this is a mineral oil container from Walmart. So I use that. I don't use mineral oil in my mix because mineral oil won't dry. So if you use mineral oil, your finish is never going to harden or dry. So I don't use mineral oil, but I do use mineral oil for my chainsaw to lubricate the chain. So that's where this container came from. This container here is one I've just started using, and basically what it is it's Dawn dish soap. It's a 7.5 fluid ounce bottle. I get these at the dollar store. So what I do is I'll go buy 3 or 4 of these. I'll dump the dish soap into a bigger container that I have in the kitchen, and then I just use the empty container to put my mix in. So I get a container, and I get a product for $1. So if you just go look for containers by themselves, they're usually about $1 a piece. So I get some soap along with it. So so when you mix this, the oil you use, you want it to be a drying oil. Otherwise the finish will never harden, and eventually as it gets handled, it'll dull because it hasn't had a chance to cure. So you want a drying oil. That way it'll harden, it'll cure, and then you'll be able to touch it, and it's not going to mess with the finish. So basically what I do is I'll mix one up with the clear shellac. So I just shake the can a little bit. It doesn't really I don't think it really separates that much, but so I'll just mix the can a little bit, and then open this up. So there's basically 3 aspects to my finish. There's the mix that I use, there's the way that I apply it, which I'll show you after I do this, and then there's also the surface itself. So now one thing I'm going to try, because whenever I do this, it always makes a mess. So I'm going to try. I saw this. I think I saw this in a video. You just put the tape on. You cross it here, and then hopefully it won't make because usually it runs on this and runs down. It always just makes a big mess. So I'm going to try this and see if that helps with that. So basically I just use a funnel, and what I'll do is I'll just pour this in. Yeah, it's still making a big mess. Oh well. I guess there's no way to get around that. At least I haven't found one yet. Soak that up a little bit. Okay, so I pour in, I guess there's about an ounce of space left. So I pour the friction polish in up to that point, and then I take the boiled linseed oil, and basically what I'll do is I'll just top it off with the oil, and that's the ratio that I mix my friction polish at. And then I'll just pour it in until I get to the top of the container. Just like that. So basically what I'm doing is I'm using mostly shellac, and I think the problem that I was having by not having a shine that lasts is I was diluting the shellac too much. So basically you're not getting enough shellac onto the project to hold a shine. So now you can see the level of the boiled linseed oil. Now you could probably use tung oil and maybe teak oil, because I think those are both drying oils, and you could also use walnut oil. I think that's another drying oil. But you don't want to use any oils that don't dry, because then your finish is never gonna cure, and it's never gonna harden. So the more you handle it, you're gonna lose your shine on it. So that's my mix, and that's been working great for me. I mean, you can see it in my projects what my finish looks like. So so there's that. So that's the first aspect of my finish. So the next aspect is how I apply it. So what I used to do is I used to just go buy the cheap paper towels at the store and use those. But the problem with those is they're not lint free, and basically when you're putting the finish on, when you get toward the end of it, when it starts to dry, that the lint comes off onto the finish, and the paper towel is kind of rough, so you're not getting a smooth surface of applying it. So what I found is I found these. These are they're called wyp-all brand towels, and basically what this is it's a paper towel, but it's really close to a cotton surface, and cotton is probably the best thing you can use to apply the finish. But cotton is a rag, and there's the issue with if it gets caught on the lathe, it might drag your hand into it or something, could cause injuries. So this here, it's really similar to cotton, but it's still a paper towel. So if anything happens, it's just going to tear it rather than try to yank your hand into it. So that's what I use to apply the finish. So the couple of things that you can do, I guess kind of a troubleshooting thing, is after you mix it up, you want to mix it so that the oil and the shellac mix together. And what you want, I mean, if you use this mix, you won't have an issue with this, but basically what you want is when I put the friction polish onto the paper towel, I want it to, see if we can see that. Now you can see how it's not just soaking right into the paper towel, it's puddling there. soaks in if you let it sit for a little while. But if you're pouring your shellac onto the paper towel and it just soaks right in right away, your shellac is way too thin. So what you want is when you pour it on there, you want it to like puddle. If it doesn't puddle and it soaks right in, all you're going to be doing is basically scraping the towel onto the finish, and you're not going to get the shine that you want. So this is a mix that I use. This is the paper towel I use, and since I've been using these paper towels, my finishes are coming out way better. So in the next aspect, I'll show you. I'm going to put a piece of wood on my lathe, and I'll show you what to look for when you're applying it, and I will show you the surface of the wood is a really important part of how your finish is going to turn out. So I'm going to clear all this off. I'll set up the lathe, and then I'll be back. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is I always have the speed on slow, and I just put a generous amount of friction polish, so you can see how it's not soaking in, it's just kind of puddled there. And what I'll do is I'll apply it, and I'll just keep putting it on till I have a good coating on there. I put it on pretty generously. And if you notice when I'm putting it on, see how it's kind of leaving like a film on there? You can kind of see the lines where it's leaving a film. And I just keep doing that. Get a good film on there. See how you can see the lines. If you put it on and it's just kind of wet but not like building up, I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but so you can see when I go back and forth how it's you can see the lines where there's a good film on there. So I get it to that point, and then what I do, once I have a good coating all the way on there, then I'll turn the speed up. And then here you're kind of, I guess, burnishing it. So the whole idea with the friction polish is you want to get the shellac is basically the finish that's going to be on here. So the alcohol basically dissolves the shellac, makes it a liquid. And the oil, basically the only aspect of the oil to this finish is it acts as a lubricant. So when you're doing this, if you didn't have oil in it, when it starts to dry, you could feel it start tugging at the rag. So the oil just acts as a lubricant. So I found that if I put less oil in, just enough to keep it lubricated, then that's really all I need. The main goal here is to get the shellac on there. Now as you do this, you're going to feel your fingers start to warm up, and that's basically drying the finish. Now all the alcohol is going to evaporate, so all you're going to really have left on here is the shellac and then what little residue of oil is still there. So I just apply it like this till my fingers get warm, and then that's pretty much it. The project is, or the finish is dry, and it's you're done. If you try to go past the point of your fingers warming up, then it's you're going to start dulling the finish. So once your fingers get warm, you want to stop. So that's pretty much it. So one of the other things to getting a good shiny finish is the preparation of your wood. If you don't have it sanded good enough, you're never going to get a good shine on it. So on most of my projects, once I finish shaping it, I'll start with 80 grit. And 80 grit is the most important part of your sanding, because that's what's going to remove the tool marks and if there's any tear out or anything like that. If you don't get all that out with 80 grit, it's going to be in your project all the way through till till you're finished sanding. So 80 grit, the first part, and that's the most important part. You want to make sure that you get a nice, you get rid of all the tool marks, any kind of blemish in the wood or whatever, whether it's tear out or whatever. Basically, when you're done with 80 grit, if you feel your project, it should feel like almost like touching, like if you rub a cotton t-shirt, you know, you get that kind of rough feel, but it should feel that way all the way through. It should be even. If you're rubbing your hand on it and you feel any like rough spots that feel different than the rest, you need to keep sanding till you get it all even and it's all the same. Once you get that done with the 80 grit, basically the rest of the process is just removing the scratches from the previous grit. So 80 grit to start out with, then the 120, that's probably the second most important, because that will help refine the surface from the 80 grit. Once you get past the 120, the rest of them are just going to be removing the scratches from the previous grit, and you just work your way up. So I go 80, 120, 150, 180, 220, 320, and 400. And all those other grits, all they're doing is just removing the scratches from the previous grit. And the scratches get less and less till you get up to the 400. Now, if you want to get a shinier finish, for most of the stuff I do, it doesn't need to be like a mirror finish or anything like that. So most of the time I only go to 400. I've done a few projects where I went up to like 1,000 grit because I wanted a really nice finish, but for the most part I don't need that. So I usually stop about 400. So that's pretty much it, I think. Hopefully that covers everything. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment. If you enjoyed this video, if you learned something from it, consider subscribing to my channel and hit the like button if you thought it was informative and you got something out of it. Hope the background noise wasn't too bad. I'll see how it is when I edit the video. But so that's it. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next one.